My man Drake, it's Victory Monday.
That's right.
The Colts, the Indianapolis Colts, a team that nobody counted in this week, has come out with the victory. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast on the Horseshoe Huddle, brought to you by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore. I'm joined by my co-host and esteemed colleague, Drake Wally. We're the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. So it's great to be joining you guys on a Victory Monday here. The Colts come out on top. Drake, how you doing, man? How you doing after that wild game that we saw yesterday afternoon?
Well, I do got to say, I'm surprised on every front from both sides of each team, many different ways. But I got to say, I was very impressed, very excited, and again, I might still be drinking that Jeff Saturday Kool-Aid. So, excited.
a lot of Colts fans are. A lot of Colts fans are, and they should enjoy this victory, because after all of the criticism and all of the chaos from firing Frank Reich on Monday, the announcement that Jeff Saturday was taking over as the interim head coach, the criticism that this team and Jeff Saturday received from national media, from local media alike, they should enjoy this one. Whether it was against the Raiders or it was against the Eagles, who the Colts play this upcoming week, a win's a win in the NFL. But before we dive in, give our reactions and everything, I want to ask you guys to go ahead and go follow us. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake on Twitter. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter at Colts on FN. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube. Hit that bell so you know when we're going live. And then you can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. Let's dive into it, Drake. We have no time to waste tonight.
There's not enough time.
There isn't enough time. But hey, let's dive in. Before we get into the X's and O's and talk about what happened on the field, let's talk about the guy that got his first win as an NFL head coach, Jeff Saturday. What was your reaction to it all? Tell me what was going through your head. Tell me what you saw yesterday, and really how you thought Jeff Saturday did going 1-0 yesterday.
I was actually pretty impressed with his patience. Very calm, very relaxed. It was kind of like we said about Sam Ehlinger, a couple weeks ago. The moment didn't really seem too big for him. It wasn't, and he was away, and he was in Vegas. And there's a lot of people in Vegas, and there's a lot of people who like to drink and have a good time. So it's loud in there. Now, everyone's talking about, well, they're a disaster. Well, you're also facing Josh McDaniels, man, who, if there's one thing he understands, it is offense. And I just felt like everybody looked a little bit different, Andrew. That's how I felt. I felt like Saturday had some sort of different vibe about him. So,
oh yeah, and I would agree. I mean, there were right off the bat, there was just a different energy to this team. You come into a hostile environment after getting just brutalized by the media, by some fans all week long badly. about what happened, and you come into Vegas. The team seemed just rejuvenized. They came in with a fight and an energy that has been missing for weeks now. And Saturday talked about this. He said that he wasn't going to come in and really overhaul this team. I mean, he has talented coaches on the staff. There's talented players on this roster, veterans on the roster that have been to Super Bowls before, that have gone through this on bad teams and have been on good teams.
Oh yeah.
Jeff Saturday said that this team is only going to go as far as the players take them. And I think we saw that yesterday. We saw a higher energy level out of the offensive line. We saw a sharp Matt Ryan. We saw a healthy Jonathan Taylor. We saw a defense getting that really put their foot forward out there. So it was that energy that I think was needed. And I think it's something we kind of expected with Jeff Saturday coming into, just the passion that he brings. And it certainly showed out there on the field.
Well, he ended one of his pressers with, I'm sure as hell not going to back down.
Right.
And that's one thing that we watched this man. We've seen this man. We know an undersized lineman who used to destroy, and I mean destroy people physically, but mentally he would also make the reads off the line for the entire team, for Deem, for Glenn, for all those guys. This was the general of the offensive line who protected the general of the entire offense. So we all knew that he would help the Colts out a lot. Okay, at least from that passionate perspective. But he simplified things. Everything just seemed different. And when he put Matt Ryan in as the starter, it was almost expected as well. I almost felt like he was going to do something like that. So I was just impressed with how calm he was, and he just seemed like he'd been coaching for 7 or 8 straight games.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stats Matt is referencing the some of the outrage, the most egregious thing ever in the NFL. The words
and
coming,
think too.
yeah,
Yeah,
and think.
he said think the way people thought too.
The words that came out of a Joe Thomas and a scowling Bill Coward this weekend. Jeff Saturday, as I said in my article that came out this morning on Horseshoe Huddle, he silenced the doubters for now, and he certainly did that. Good to see you, Stats Matt, as always. But yeah, man, I like how you said how they simplified things, because that kind of leads me into my next point, kind of talking about Jeff Saturday. The Colts also had a 30-year-old play caller calling his first ever game in the NFL in Parks Frazier. And this is something that I really noticed, and I wondered if you picked up on it too, is that the Colts did not do a lot of complicated things on offense yesterday. We saw a lot of the same simple concepts, and the Colts ran those over and over again. And Parks Frazier said this before the game. He said it on Thursday, I think. He said that we might simplify things, and the goal isn't to do a lot of things, have a lot of things in the playbook. It's it's kind of shorten things up, but do them very well. And I think that really helped this Colts offense, number one, play faster. I think it allowed the young guys on the offensive line to play with more confidence. As Stats Matt takes the words right out of my mouth, blocking scheme was simpler for the offensive line. And you saw guys like Bernard Raymond over there at left tackle. He had probably his best game as a pro. You saw Will Fries step in at right guard and have his best game as a pro. Sometimes you don't need to make football any harder than it already is. Keep it simple and just go out there and execute. And I think that's exactly what the Colts offense did yesterday.
Well, and it's like, I even have my kind of notes here, low risk play calls. Also, it just seemed like things were not, we're not going to put it, up to potentially a 50-50 ball. They didn't do any of that stuff. Like, it was very low risk. They gave Ryan time to throw, which he is naturally. All those years in Atlanta, that man was a pocket passer. He ran the entire offense. Yeah, he had Freeman, I think, a couple of years, but and Turner, of course. But other than that, he was mostly in a pass-first offense at all times. And so for him to get in a rhythm and then on top of that get protection, I mean, that's ridiculous. And then Jonathan Taylor got to be what I call lightning in a bottle yet again. And he runs only one way, and that is every time he touches that football, you might let it out, and that's going to end in 6 points for you. And the Raiders learned that the hard way. That's the first time I've seen it all year. And I forgot to say one thing about back to Saturday, and it kind of pertains to Frazier too. They've not looked better. They looked more fluid than they had in every single game. Humble opinion only.
I really think a lot of it was because they simplified things. I mean, there were always times where you thought, Frank Reich's getting a little bit cute here, or he's trying to outsmart the defense. But we saw there it was 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 1, I forget, from the 1 yard line. What happened? Parks Frazier calls a QB sneak. Matt Ryan sticks it up in there and gets the touchdown. No crazy bootleg, no trying to snap it from the shotgun
like 6'5"
and do a draw play to Jonathan Taylor. No, you got it into Matt Ryan's hands and you just ran it up the middle. Just got that, went behind your all-pro guard, your Pro Bowl center who played their best games of the year. Go right up in there and get the score. So you love to see that. Tim Milliken, thanks for joining us again, buddy. Cowher had no issue leapfrogging experienced journalists to be a spit piece on CBS. Now, did he? Yeah, I saw that, and I was thinking kind of the same thing yesterday. I mean, Cowher's talking a big game about how Jeff Saturday didn't have any coaching experience. I don't remember seeing you on a TV set, buddy, before your playing.
A lot of people in line for that one. Trust me. I mean, look at what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
A lot of people.
Exactly. But One last thing about Saturday is, and I think we kind of already touched on it, but the feel of this team, it just feels different. I think we said there was a different energy to this team, but now, do you think that instead that this energy can continue and then they can start really hammering home and then trying to improve on the various aspects, because he's only going to be a new coach for so long, and
Mhm.
the Colts have a lot of tough games coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that this can continue? I mean, if I'm betting up against Jeff Saturday, I mean, I could see him surprising people throughout the rest of the year.
Well, I think that when you take a team that was so turnover prone like they were, and you simplify a game plan for a veteran like Matt Ryan and a running back like Jonathan Taylor and offensive linemen who are supposed to beat you down throughout the entire game, you're probably going to look better than you did. So I think that I think the offense is going to continue to run better. I truly do. I think that he understands, hey, look, this is simple. Simple is way better for a running football team. It's force. And as he said in his post game, I think they caught him like, giving the team a little chant there at the end. He's like, the most physical team always wins. And so he believes you fed off of that. You got that run the damn ball. There you go. That's how I felt like Saturday treated that game. So I think that you're going to get that 2021 Colts running back, or that running scheme, that running feel back into this offense, which is perfect.
That I mean, that'd be a sight that all Colts fans would welcome, and everybody in that organization would welcome as well. So let's dive into kind of the X's and O's. Let's look at the offense, let's look at the defense, kind of dissect how they did. Colts come out on top of the Raiders, 25-20. The Colts are now 4-5-1 on the year, and let's dive into the offense, Drake. And I've got a couple. I'm going to give you some stats here to start out before we dive into some specific players. The Colts
Right.
had 415 total yards of offense, 208 passing, 207 on the ground. Can't hardly be any more balanced than that Colts attack yesterday. They were
Love it.
6 for 11 on third down, as opposed to 0 for 14 on third down last week against the New England Patriots. And then here's one of the big ones as well. Only one sack given up, as opposed to 9 last week against the New England Patriots. Just an all around better offensive performance. I mean, what stood out to you about all that, just about the offense in general?
He's an inexperienced coach. That had nothing to do with that. Okay. That the better offensive line had nothing to do. Look, I think that they ran their entire offense was just they were having fun. The coaches were losing their minds on the field. They looked nearly perfect at times. Paris Campbell, I felt like, I predicted that I was hoping, I was really going based off of hope that Jeff Saturday would utilize him to get that ball out quickly. And he did. I mean, he's been unleashed this year and he looks really good. I thought Kylan Granson, when he was given the opportunity to be a number one tight end, he actually had the second most catches this season for a tight end. Mo Alley was 6, of course, but he had 4 for 57 on all 4 targets, and he busted one loose for 32 yards off of a 5-yard completion. I mean, the offense looked like they wanted to actually be there. And one last thing, I think right here we go. This made me a very happy man to see. So just so excited. It's the Raiders, but I'm excited. Dang it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And stats, Matt, I am coming for your job a little bit. I got the stats on deck. And Tim, I wish I could take the credit for this, but it was actually Drake, I think, that had the Paris Campbell prophecy out there saying that it would be a big game for Paris Campbell. I was talking about Kwity Paye last week, who unfortunately went down with an ankle injury. Drake was
oh
the one that
yeah.
was all over the Paris Campbell stats there. But yeah, I mean, Paris Campbell, let's talk about that guy. 7 catches, 76 yards, which is a career high, and that 35-yard touchdown that gave the Colts the lead for good. This is the Paris Campbell that that the Colts drafted out of Ohio State, a guy that in the open field is as dangerous as anybody that the Colts have. He's a guy that he still has that 4.3 speed that you talk about, where you get him the ball and he can run away from pretty much everybody. This is the Paris Campbell that the Colts have been envisioning for 4 years now, and he's healthy. He's got a quarterback that's given him opportunities to succeed, and he's making the most of those opportunities. So, I mean, you couldn't be happier for Paris Campbell. That kid has gone through a lot, both physically and mentally. And to see him go out there and shine on the field, it's a real feel good story. But it's also dangerous for other defenses that are going to try to have to stop number one for the rest of the season, and he could be on his way to earning a second contract with the Colts.
Well, and he just showed everything that he's been. I mean, I really feel like his injuries were clearly the biggest deterrent, but he's really getting his finally his rookie year almost,
Mm-hmm.
and he is playing lights out. He's got a quarterback who loves throwing those routes. He kind of reminds me a little bit of how Ryan utilized Calvin Ridley. I mean, those underneath throws, those little slants, those little, slot routes. I mean, he's running them to perfection. He's getting in the open field. He split two defenders, outrunning them, and they almost cracked each other's helmets. I mean, like they literally almost hit heads. He just ran right through them. That's that ridiculous blinding speed we've been waiting on. They're using him in screens. They're sending him down the field. They're having him do one cut routes right to the middle to try to split cover two. It's like he finally gets that opportunity. And if any one of you follow him on Twitter, this dude is happy every single day. So clearly something is different. And I think it's great. It's good for us for sure.
Yeah,
It's good for the Colts for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And Tim Milliken, he's going all the way back to the Colts podcast days. I did say that Paris Campbell was going to have a breakout season if he could stay healthy. He is making me look very smart. And then Tim, thanks for giving Drake his props on the Raiders prediction.
Thanks, man.
there. But yeah, I mean, Paris, I think the biggest thing with Paris Campbell too is we knew he had this ability. And not only is he staying healthy, but he's able to put these games back to back to back. And it's that confidence because he's still a very young player. I mean, 23, 24 years old. He's still a very young player. And to build up that confidence to prove to himself, hey, I can do this in the National Football League. Yes, but I can do this game after game after game. And not only is that good for him, builds up a confidence with Matt Ryan to continue to trust him in those tough situations. And now Matt Ryan, not only does he have a really good chemistry with Michael Pittman, he's building that chemistry with Alec Pierce. We've seen that already this year on the deep balls. Paris Campbell's coming into the fold. And then you have three guys that Matt Ryan really relies upon and it really has that trust in. He can go all over the field with it. And Matt Ryan, let's talk about old Matty Ice here.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
21 for 28, 222 yards, 2 total touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground. And I know the play you want to talk about. The play that credit to Barstool Indy with the Titanic music in the background.
Go look that up, everybody. It is great.
Matty Ice, 39-yard run. That's the 4th longest run out of any quarterback in the 2022 season. It goes Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Kyler Murray, and Matt Ryan. Never did I think that I would be talking about that this year. What did you see from Matty Ice yesterday? And by the way, I think Jeff Saturday made the right move, putting number 2 back in as the starter there at quarterback.
Well, just to start off, that run was very heady of him. He didn't throw the ball. I honestly thought in a split second, oh, he's going to throw this. And when he took off and when he was about to break that tackle, I mean, there was a guy, I can't remember who it was, that mentioned if he would have ran all 75 yards, I mean, Twitter would have broke. Like every social media platform would have crashed immediately. I thought that he looked comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
He had 18 of his 21 completions. He had 7 to Campbell. He had 7 to Campbell, 7 to Pittman, 4 to Granson. He found the perfect targets in the game. He was 75%. He scored 2 different ways. He just looked like he hadn't been benched at all. Like
Mhm.
it just seemed like he hadn't even missed a beat or two different games and hadn't had any shoulder issues or any arm issues. He just looked good, man. He looked really good.
He looked like a 15-year veteran that's done it before. You bring him in off the bench, he stays ready to go, and that's exactly what he did. And we think about this too. I mean, obviously, I'll go through the film again tomorrow night because hey, the Ellinger experiment that lasted all of 2 games. So that article series will be put in the backdrop. The Ryan review will be back Wednesday morning. But just from my first watch of that game on Sunday, Matt Ryan didn't try to force the ball. And that he was trying to do that a lot to start because not only was he under constant duress for the majority of the first 7 games that he played, the Colts were in deficits most of those times. And Ryan was trying to put the team on his back to try to get him back into the game. He didn't have to do that this time. The Colts played with a lead for the majority of the game, so he could take what the defense gave him. He was smart with the ball. He was very accurate with the football. The only mistake that I saw Matt Ryan make was he probably should have got rid of that ball or tried to get rid of that ball on the sack. But other than that, Matt Ryan played his most efficient game in a Colts uniform, and I think that on top of not having any interceptions, any fumbles, if Kiki QT doesn't fumble that ball inside the red zone,
Yeah.
I mean, the Colts probably win this one running away, honestly, because the rest of the offense, I mean, Pittman had a fumble and then by sheer luck and effort was able to get it back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the Ryan sack, those were really the only big miscues I saw out of that offense yesterday.
They just played very efficient, you know. I and the thing is, QT he's had issues with with coughing the ball up. I mean, there was an actual like promo that was done for the Indianapolis Colts where it showed in 2021 the defense punching out a fumble, and it was QT when he was with the Texans. So, I mean, he's had fumbling issues, but outside of that, I mean, man, they just at the end of the day they looked two things, which are always important for an offense. The Indianapolis Colts looked comfortable and happy. They
Mhm.
really did. They looked like they were just jubilant on the sideline. Every big play. When Ryan was running down that field, I thought Buckner was going to have a heart attack. That dude was like, he was like, yeah, he's like losing his mind. I was just like, man, when have you seen that? When have you seen that
Right.
from that team? You just have not. So
Absolutely,
it
man.
was
And
cool.
and we'll touch on this real quick before we talk. We got to talk about JT and the offensive line, but this is
Of
a really
course.
good point by Matt. Something I did like about what I saw from Saturday was since he wasn't calling plays, there were times we saw him coaching up guys on the sideline because he didn't have to focus on every detail, and that's a very good point. I think recency bias in the NFL. Everyone wants the hot offensive coach, the guy that's the next Sean McVay, great play caller, a QB whisperer, someone that can light the world on fire with a big offense. There's multiple ways to coach in the NFL. I mean, some of the greatest to do it, and some of the greatest that are still coaching right now. You think of Bill Belichick. Whatever your opinion about him is, Bill Belichick started on the defense side of the ball and in special teams.
Yep.
He delegates it and lets other guys kind of handle that so that way he can manage the game. John Harbaugh, I think one of the best, and he's one of the longest tenure coaches in the NFL. A guy that started on special teams, lets his coordinators and lets his coaches do their best work, and he kind of manages the game. Mike Tomlin, the same way. All of these coaches, you don't have to be a guy that has the next big offensive scheme or the next offense that's going to light the world on fire. Sometimes you just need a guy that's going to be a cheerleader, a guy that can manage the game, hire really smart people around him to do their job. And I think that's the kind of style that Jeff Saturday has. He doesn't want to go out and prove that he's the smartest guy in the room. He says that he wants the other people to be smarter than he is around him to make him look better, and he's just going to help out where he can. And I think that was a really good attitude to have for Saturday coming into this and just trying to play catch up as it seems.
Well, you look at a guy like Frank Reich, you know, everybody in Indianapolis should respect Frank Reich. He was there a long time, but the thing is, he commanded a lot. He
Hmm.
had to have a lot, and he was just staring out on the field most of the time. Josh McDaniel also is very much that way. They struggle. I'm not saying there haven't ever been those guys that have probably done that, but it seems to be the people that allow the people who get paid the millions of dollars to do that specific task, such as O line, such as D line, such as linebackers, to do as Bill Belichick would say, just do your job. Do your
Hmm.
job. And that is exactly what Saturday did. He even said, I just want to, like you said, I want to surround myself with people smarter than me because that's what successful people do.
Hmm.
That's very true. And he got to, as stats Matt mentioned, you saw him coaching up the O line. He was over there smaller as usual than every single person, but a legend nonetheless in that exact position, got to talk to those guys in the midst of battle, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
Right.
So
And then a comment from Jim Gibson. Jim Gibson, the legend himself. Thanks for tuning in, man. Saturday showed his strength to be recognizing the strengths of those on the field and of his staff. Put it perfectly.
absolutely.
Put it
Yep.
perfectly.
Nailed
Uh,
it.
so let's talk about Jonathan Taylor and the offensive line real quick. The Colts had a healthy Jonathan Taylor on the field, and what does he do? He goes out there for 22 carries, 147 yards, a touchdown off of a 66-yard run. What'd you see out of Jonathan Taylor yesterday?
I saw Jonathan Taylor. I saw I saw actually Jonathan Taylor, not the shell that was Jonathan Taylor in the first 9 weeks.
Hmm.
Um, I'll tell you right. I'll actually quote because I tuned into Saturday's little interview on the Pat McAfee show, and he said Jonathan Taylor, we had to get him touches. That's important to him. I know it's a short quote, but that's huge. Listen to that. He knows what's important to Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor knows he's a running back. And if he's going to get and break a big run, you got to have at least 15, 16 carries, 17. He got the volume. He got the blocks. He got in those, I got two linebackers in front of me situations where a guy like him, all he has to do is juke within the right spot. Both of them can miss. And he did that. So he looked comfortable. He looked clean. He looked like he was ready to go and like he hadn't even been hurt. Man, it was good to see. And it inspired me to wear this amazing sweatshirt. So, yeah.
I think two things can be true at once. It is true that Jonathan Taylor can take it to the house on every single play. But it's also true that Jonathan Taylor is the kind of running back that wears you down over the course of a game,
Yep.
just because of the speed, the punishing style of running, that he's not going to usually go down on first contact. You have to have a couple guys other to wrap him up and bring him down. And over the course of 60 minutes, that wears on you. And when his ankle is feeling better, he said his ankles felt the best it's felt in a long, long time. When you have that on top of the offensive line really showing that attitude of finishing and pushing guys around, something we really haven't seen. I mean, I saw Will Fries, shout out to Will Fries, a rookie that I wrote a huge piece on coming out, and a guy that has just consistently wants to get better. I saw multiple Raiders defenders pretty mad at Will Fries because he was playing through the whistle, pushing guys and getting into their face. The Raiders didn't take too kindly of that, but Will Fries didn't care at all. The guy
Love it.
went out there, continued to impose his will. And if you watch on that 66-yard run, who is it? It's Will Fries and right tackle Braden Smith that are sealing off that right side, making that big hole. And then you got Jonathan Taylor in the open field with one guy to make miss. I mean, good luck. Good luck
Yeah.
to you. Jonathan Taylor's going to get that 9 out of 10 times. So great execution by Jonathan Taylor. He looked more decisive. He looked healthy. The offensive line were giving him quick holes to be able to hit that burst and go through. That's what a Colts offense should look like. That's the offense that Matt Ryan was promised when he came from Atlanta. And you can see the results right there.
Well, it's been way better, at least as far as like basically the last, I mean, let's see, it'd be 9 games. You just have had a dejected offensive line. And not only are they the highest paid, but I remember, and I think we referenced this in the last episode, the Colts kept getting hammered on social media because, oh, it's the worst performance that we've seen since 2017. And I kept making the connection that offensive line wasn't paid anywhere near $42 million. They played like that salary Yeah, they
Mhm.
played like that salary yesterday. They played like they wanted to win. And it going back to a point I forgot to even make, there was a little bit of trash talk. The Colts
Mhm.
had some trash talk going on from Franklin, from Fries. I mean, these guys,
It's that
they were
energy.
angry. They played angry. That offensive line, they were angry, man.
Yeah,
Angry.
absolutely. Yeah, and Tim Milliken brings up a good point. I wonder if Frank watched the game. If I'm being honest, I don't know if he watched the game. I think he probably wants to decompress and away from it. He's probably
Yeah,
was rooting for the Colts and wanting them to do well because that's just the kind of guy Frank Reich is. But
great
my
dude.
guess is he was probably hanging out with his kids, his grandkids, and kind of just decompressing from everything. But I mean, we haven't even talked about the defensive side of the ball yet. So let's dive in. Stats, Matt, taking your job here. Let's get a couple more stats in here before we dive into the analysis. Only 309 yards allowed by the defense, 2 sacks, one by Grover Stewart, and then DeForest Buckner and not Yannick Ngakoue split the other one. um, what'd you see out of the defense, man? What were the guys? Who were the guys that impressed? And were you surprised that they were able to do this? Because I certainly wasn't.
Not really. I mean, the Raiders' offensive line, they've been struggling the entire year.
Hmm.
Carr, as we mentioned, you couldn't, it's a very obscure stat, but when he's pressured, he's a totally different guy. You saw it. You literally saw it whenever the Colts, were able to get through. But I did see that the weakness was still the pass rush. And without Quiddy Pay, they were substantially different, but they were still able to get enough pressure to force some mistakes. I thought the secondary and the linebackers, though, they really looked phenomenal, especially that secondary. Franklin and Rogers, they shined. And we always, I put here, Stephon Gilmore continues to be tested, yet he's undefeated outside of Indianapolis' own Terry McLaurin. So, yeah.
That's a hell of a quote there by you, man. But yeah, I mean, you saw early in the game where the Colts were getting pressure, especially up the middle on Derek Carr. It was DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, and the Raiders really struggled to move the ball early. Then all of a sudden, you put more attention on DeForest Buckner. He was facing double teams pretty much the entire game. Quiddy Pay goes down with that ankle injury, and you kind of get Dio Dangbo in there, who did fine,
Yeah.
but Quiddy Pay is still quite a bit better than Dio Dangbo. Yannick Ngakoue really wasn't able to make a large impact. That's when you saw Derek Carr able to kind of sit back there in the pocket and make plays down the field. Josh Jacobs got going a little bit, but it was the guys you talked about. Zaire Franklin led the team again with 10 tackles. Bobby Okereke, the one thing I will say is that I really don't like to see Okereke up on Devontae Adams so much. He was on Devontae Adams a lot, and Okereke took his lumps in coverage yesterday. He really did. But when they needed him up against Moreau there in the end zone, Foster Moreau, Okereke came away with that pass deflection. And then I'm right there with you. I really do not understand why opposing quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks, why they keep trying to throw at Stephon Gilmore when the game's on the line. I mean, you saw Russell Wilson do it. You see Patrick Mahomes do it. You saw Derek Carr do it. It's all these AFC West quarterbacks. The Colts are 3-0 against AFC West this year. I wonder why. It's probably because Stephon Gilmore is out there locking down the receivers in those clutch moments. I mean, and I shout out to Isaiah Rodgers too. I don't want this episode to go by without talking about Isaiah Rodgers. The stats Matt kind of says here, Franklin is a dog. Rodgers should get 75% or more snaps. Gilly is still Gilly. Only issue on defense was pass rush without Quiddy and how many times Okereke was on Adams. I mean, stats Matt basically words right out of my mouth. But Isaiah Rodgers saw the majority of the snaps finally over there at that other outside cornerback position and played well. Was in Devontae Adams' face, knocking balls away. Right now, I think he's the fourth highest graded cornerback on Pro Football Focus. So, I mean, Isaiah Rodgers, I'm just a huge fan of his. Think he's a star, and this defense is just it just continues to produce, continues to keep the Colts in games it's really a testament to Gus Bradley and his staff for how they've really prepared this Colts defense without arguably their best player all year in Shaquille Leonard.
And they're basically playing almost as if he's out there on the field already. And the thing is, you talk about Gilmore, you talk about Rogers, you talk about Kenny Moore, then you've got Blackman, then you've got McLeod. I mean, the Colts have one hell of a secondary. I'll tell you that right now. That's not a secondary to be tested. And unfortunately, when you're trying to win the game, your second best receiver is Mac Hollins. You kind of don't have it. This is just my own take. I don't know if I'd even have a choice. It's almost as if you have to just hope to God that somehow Adams comes up with that. But give credit to Gilmore, man. He stood tall and he didn't even look at the ball. I remember watching the game. He looked and he just watched Adams' eyes underneath his visor. It almost looked like, and he was just like, he just batted it away. It was remarkable defense. Well done.
Colts, I'm comfortable saying have a top 10 defense in the league. Some metrics they're a top 5 defense.
Yep.
But they've done more than enough to keep this Colts team competitive this season. And I think if the offense was humming on all cylinders, we'd see a pretty complete team. But well, really, there's only one injury to report from the day was Kwity Paye with the ankle. Jeff Saturday didn't really have an update today. So we'll see. Probably the next time we speak with Jeff Saturday will be Wednesday. So we'll probably give you an update on Thursday about how Paye is doing. And then Shaq Leonard was supposed to meet with a neck specialist today to kind of determine the severity of his back ankle nerve issues there. He has been placed on IR, so he will miss at least the next 4 games, possibly more. We'll have to keep you updated on that. But I know it was just against the Raiders, but this team deserved that victory, and they deserve to enjoy that victory after everything that they had been through all week. And for as many people that counted them out, it was good energy by the Colts, good execution by the Colts. They deserve to enjoy that victory.
It was a very solid win. It's against again, a play caller that is very good with offense. He might be a little overwhelmed right now, but this is a team that still has Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, and they showed they can still give you an absolute scare. But back to your point about Kiki QT's fumble, without that, you might be looking at a 2-score victory. So overall, well done by the Indianapolis Colts. They've got a tough matchup coming up, but right now, savor the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And Krista Patrick, great to see you. Asked, what do you think about Parks Frazier calling the plays? We kind of already talked about that a little bit earlier, but I think we can say that Parks did really good in his debut, and he kept things simple. And we'll be excited to see how he continues that down the road against some more formidable defenses and defenses that are going to throw him different looks as the Colts go into these next seven games that they have left for the 2022 season. But for our last segment today here, going to kind of throw it back to something that Brandon and I used to do on a Colts podcast, the Colts player of the game. Now, Brandon would never give this award out if the Colts lost, but hey, we don't have to worry about that. It's Victory Monday. So, Drake, who is your Colts player of the game for Colts versus Raiders?
Well, everybody wants to talk about Ryan. Everyone wants to talk about Taylor and Campbell and Pittman. There was a lot of candidates, but I'm going to go for the Colts. I'm going to go with somebody who finally showed up, and it was Kylen Granson. 100% of his targets he caught. He turned a 5-yard completion into a 32-yard scamper. He had. When he was shoved into the number 1 tight end role, he shined as a receiver, and he had the second most catches of the year in a game for a tight end this year for the Colts. I just thought that, man, if that guy just can if he can just catch the ball enough, it could be one heck of a threat for the Colts, but he just needs to block a little better, might get more snaps.
I like that. That's an out of the box choice. I definitely
just figured I'd go with somebody that no one's talking about. Everybody's talking about the other guys.
I definitely wouldn't have gone Kylen Granson, but hey, I like it. He did play a very good game yesterday. I'm gonna go with a guy that I think really deserves it. I'm gonna go with Paris Campbell. I was thinking about Jonathan Taylor and Matt Ryan because they both did a great job. But Paris Campbell, 7 catches, career high 76 yards, the touchdown that gave the Colts the lead. Paris Campbell was just all over the field, and I love to see this kid's confidence grow. I love to see him coming into his own, and I really like to see what this offense can be with Paris Campbell, because now without Naheem Hines, you're going to see Paris Campbell in more of those gadget type roles. So again, Paris Campbell, continue to shine, brother. He's earning himself, when at the beginning of the year didn't really seem like that was going to be an option. He's earning himself a second contract with the Indianapolis Colts, and if this continues through the last seven games of the season, I think he very well could be back in the blue and white next year.
Well, I think every single Colts fan out there can safely say that they are very excited to see, at this point in the year, Paris Campbell playing the way he is. Good for him, good for the Colts, and best of luck to him because he looks good.
Tim Milliken's all on the Granson pick, man. He loves it. So you got one there, but we are 40 minutes in now. We've covered the whole game. That flew by. But hey, appreciate everybody for tuning in today. Stats Matt, Tim Milliken, Krista Patrick, Jim Gibson. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Again, please go follow us at the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go like it. Go follow Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter at Colts on FN. Subscribe to the YouTube channel Horseshoe Huddle. Hit that bell so you know when we are going to be going live each and every time. Follow Drake at DWalster Drake right there on Twitter, and then you can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL on Twitter as well. We will be back Thursday night to preview a very big game at Lucas Oil Stadium this upcoming weekend. Colts, Eagles, return of Nick Sirianni. We'll see if the Eagles are still undefeated after they play the Commanders tonight, but it could be a huge matchup there on Sunday. So appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you Thursday night at 7 o'clock.